Hi, I'm Mel.
Hi, I'm Danny, and we're the Sheehan sisters. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Grab your coffee, grab your snacks, grab whatever beverage you prefer to drink. Grab, your whatever. Come hang out, get cozy, because we have some things to get into.
Yes, we do. So Danny and I always debate if we want to talk about YouTube drama. We have done a few TikTok dramas in the past, but drama's been a little slow lately. But you can always count on the podcast world of YouTube to bring the drama. I guess. But it's not. There are serious topics we are going to be talking about as well. So maybe I shouldn't just blanket it all as drama. And let me just say what I'm talking about. So recently, the YouTuber podcaster Tana Mongeau shared a story about being uncomfortable while on set of another YouTuber's production, and that YouTuber is Joey Graceffa. Both of them went on Trisha Paytas's podcast, Just Trish, and spoke about the events that had happened on set. Tana told her side of the story, Joey told his side of the story. And just recently, another YouTuber, Rosanna Pansino, inserted herself into the situation. Danny and I felt like this whole situation pertained to a topic we had just spoken about recently in our video about main character syndrome and friendships.
I'm not a chronically online girly, so whenever we do talk about YouTuber tea or any sort of social media tea, sometimes I'm caught up on it, and sometimes I'm like, wait, what's this about? And I start researching, or Mel will fill me in. So she presented this issue that has recently been discussed from all of these YouTubers Mel just mentioned, and we started correlating it to our last video about main character syndrome and friendships, like Mel mentioned. And we're like, you know what, we can make a video on this, and it doesn't have to be solely about the situation, but more about friendships in general. And we're going to get into points we wanted to make, because it seems like people's real feelings are coming out. And that has happened to Mel and I, where we've had conflict, or I don't know, like an issue in a friendship group, and that's when the friends decided to tell us everything they didn't like about us. And it was like, okay, well, where was this the whole time? Like, if you're saying we're friends, then you just jumped on this opportunity to go in on all the things you don't like about me. So were we genuinely friends? And that's what we want to talk about today when it comes to someone like Rosanna, who is claiming that Tana's her friend and Trisha's her friend, but then she filmed an hour and a half podcast insulting people that she considered her friends. And we just wanted to dive a little bit into that and bring up some points that we agree with and some points that we don't agree with, and also just related back to dynamics of friendships.
Exactly. This whole situation is just like the perfect analogy. And it's a real life situation, so it's not even an analogy. But like if I were to give an analogy, it would be this situation, if that makes sense, on if someone's really your friend or not. And Danny and I have been wanting to do more videos on friendship because, like she said, we've had situations like this happen. And it's also frustrating as a woman. So, getting into the more serious part of the topic, Tana is claiming that a man on set made her uncomfortable. And it's so disheartening when another woman doesn't believe you. And as much as Rosanna was like, oh, I want to believe her, I want to believe her, she spent a whole hour and a half discrediting her and showing how she's not a believable victim. yeah, again, that's not your real friend. Like, not only are they putting you down, they're putting you down in such a vulnerable time. They're using this as their opportunity.
Right, and we did want to talk about being in vulnerable situations, especially when you're in a professional setting and a man is harassing you, a man is talking to you in a creepy way, a man is, even if people want to say, oh, it's just a compliment, I don't think he meant any harm. I'm there for work. Like, I showed up, I'm putting my hours in. I just want to clock in and clock out, but here's this man who put me in an uncomfortable situation, and I wanted to talk about that. I have a podcast and I wanted to talk about this uncomfortable, creepy situation, which she has every right to do. And for Rosanna to take that podcast, to take Tana's podcast and dissect it the way she did and negate every little detail that Tana spoke about that actually had nothing to do with the actual incident of her feeling uncomfortable, of her feeling like this dude is harassing me, like I'm just here for work and I want to just finish up my scene and move on with my day.
Right, exactly. And like, that's like literally your worst nightmare, to have someone sit there and pick apart what you're saying and like being like, oh, you said you had a Sprite but you had a Pepsi, and it's like that's literally what Rosanna is doing to Tana, and she's being so hypocritical of the way Tana was telling her story and how Tana was being mean, saying that Tana was degrading the crew and her and belittling people. But throughout Rosanna's whole podcast, she's using words like dumb dumb and saying that these women are miserable and just speaking down on young women. She's making fun of the way these young women are telling a story, and like, just a reminder, like Tana and her friends are in their 20s and Rosanna's 39 and her partner is 37, and like, you're speaking about people who are 10 years younger than you and you don't like the way they're telling a story. That's how young women speak to each other. If you would have recorded a conversation of me and my friends in our 20s, especially talking about a creepy guy who hit on one of us, like, it would probably sound pretty similar. And like, obviously the older you get, the more you mature and realize like, yeah, I shouldn't speak like this. So it makes sense that Rosanna doesn't like the way they're speaking. But once again, like, it doesn't matter if you don't like the way that they're speaking. Like, you don't have to insert yourself into that situation. Like, she's sharing an experience she had, and you're criticizing the way she's telling the story and how she's saying she hates all men and that she's calling the people ugly. And it's like, that has nothing to do with the situation. Like, you cannot like the way she's speaking. It doesn't take away from the truth of the story. And Rosanna even reinforces all the truths that were in the story. It's ironic because she's like, oh, I'm clocking all the lies. But while clocking the lies, she's also reinforcing all the truth that did happen. Tana was alone with this guy. Tana did tell people he said weird things to her. Tana did hurt her finger. It doesn't matter that it wasn't broken, it was still hurt by the same person. So in her head, you start to get paranoid, like, did this man do this on purpose? Like, am I in a harmful situation? And I also didn't like that Rosanna was like, well, he was complimenting everyone. That is like the most victim blaming sentence I've ever heard, and it frustrates me because I've been in those situations where like men are being creepy to me and some other woman wants to come over and be like, oh, he's hitting on everyone. Oh, it's not about you. Oh, you're being conceited. And it's like, if I'm uncomfortable with something, then I'm uncomfortable with it. Him complimenting everyone else doesn't negate how I'm feeling about the situation. And also, again, like, bringing up Tana's past or who she was or that she exaggerates, like, that makes other women not want to come forward or speak up, because I can, not, I don't know these people and like, but I'm going to do exactly what Rosanna did because she was just having all these preconceived notions of Tana and her friends. What I'm seeing is that Rosanna and Joey were sitting around rolling their eyes like, oh, Tana's complaining again. Tana's being bratty, or Tana's being this and that, and she thinks all these guys want her, and like not taking the situation seriously because you have this idea of who this person is and you only see them that one way.
just to rewind a little bit, I know we are jumping around and pointing out a few different elements of the story. So if you're not fully filled in on what happened, we are linking some videos below for you to get more of a deep dive on the situation. But I did want to rewind a little bit because it seems like, from Tana's perspective, she woke up early, she had to be on set, she only got 2 hours of sleep. And I think what really annoyed Rosanna the most was her and even Trisha's comments on her ceremonial honoring of her dad's passing. And that's something Mel and I wanted to talk about as well, because I think that was the main issue. I think she just ended up dissecting and tearing apart Tana's whole story, but I think her whole problem was the fact that she felt offended about their lighthearted approach to her honoring of her father's passing. And, you know, as women who also lost their father, Mel and I lost our father 5 years ago. We just celebrated his anniversary. So I can totally understand feeling sensitive about someone bringing up your parents' death and then you just interpret their comments in a completely wrong way. Like, maybe they shouldn't have said their comments lightheartedly, or maybe in Rosanna's eyes that was something they shouldn't even have brought up. If she wanted to tell the story about what happened on set, tell the story, but like, don't bring me in on it and don't bring in my ceremony to my dad. You know, I just think that she may still be processing and grieving, and that part of Tana's story like hit her open wound, like added salt into her open wound about her dad passing. Again, this is just my opinion. So I can totally see, like, if someone made a comment about my dad after he passed away and how I honored him, and I can take that and run with it and be like, well, F you then. But to go and try to destroy her whole, to go and try to destroy the whole validity of her story and what happened to her that day, I feel like that just shows that there's a good possibility that Rosanna didn't really like Tana to begin with.
Right, and going off of that, another thing we mentioned in our main character video is like not making assumptions about people, and I feel like Rosanna made the assumption that they were making fun of her by bringing up this story. So basically the story is that Rosanna smoked her dead dad, and the thing is like, that's a public video that Rosanna put out there. She put out a podcast titled I Smoked My Dead Dad. So when Tana brings it up and Trisha brings it up, it's like, they're bringing up what has already been put out into the public. It wasn't like they brought up something private or personal, but of course she still has the right to feel how she feels and be upset that it was even brought up, or again, she interpreted it as them being mean to her, and even her partner seems to be egging on the fact that they were degrading her. And it's sad that she viewed it that way, and it's like, she even says in her video, like, oh, why are we speaking on podcasts? We should, if that's your friend, you should text them. And it's like, but if these are your friends, why didn't you text them and say, hey ladies, like, I didn't like the way you approach this situation. So she's being so hypocritical, and Danny and I contradict ourselves all the time. We talked about this also in that video of like how it's kind of human nature to be hypocritical and contradict yourself every now and then. But that's like a moment of reflection we all need to have, where like Rosanna could have rewatched her own podcast and been like, oh, I'm doing the exact same thing Tana's doing. I'm telling the story from my eyes and putting my own opinion and perspective on it, and I'm making mean comments. Like, just as much as Tana was tearing down the guy that said something weird to her, she was tearing down Tana and her friends and Trisha. And it makes it worse because it's like, if you really are a girl's girl, then you're gonna be like, oh, haha, these young women are just talking about a guy who was creepy to them. And yeah, you shouldn't have brought my name into it. that was unnecessary. But like then she goes on her podcast and bashes the women and puts these women down, and it's like, how does that make you any better? Because she's kind of acting like the holier than thou of like, oh, I don't hate all men, I love everyone, and I would never speak badly about a certain location.
And downtown LA, I immediately, I say no to everything. Even if it's my own shoe, I'm like, anywhere but downtown
Yes,
LA.
I hate it. It's so far. It's so far.
Even during the day, people just get like robbed. Like it's crazy.
It is just like, it is a different world. I hate it.
I think it's just kind of like a snotty thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even want to drive to that part of town.
They're about that too.
Oof.
Wild.
Okay.
In the city, and I would never speak badly about their people, but then you're speaking badly about these people, and it's like, does it make it okay because you think they're mean girls for you to like, fight fire with fire? It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, like she does have the right to be upset about her name being brought up into it, but I just felt like everything she said, she negated her own words like constantly throughout the video.
Right. And what we took from this situation was that maybe this person's not your real friend. On both sides, in my opinion. Like, in my opinion, and I'm not really in the YouTube world like that, so I don't know them all. I don't watch their content. So I would just view it as like Tana was just showing up to a work situation. And y'all are probably just like coworker friends that you do projects with on occasion. But to see that Trisha and Rosanna actually built a friendship behind the scenes, and Rosanna was like, well, Trisha made one comment that I don't like, I'm gonna go ahead and attack her.
Right, from what we do know based on the videos we've seen, because again, we don't know these people, it seems like Trisha and Rosanna had a real friendship, and it also seems like Rosanna and Joey have a close friendship, and everyone else it just kind of seems like they're just like work friends. And again, like we could do a whole video of that too, like your work friends are not your real friends, and sometimes there's like gray areas of thinking this person's your friend, and it's like if you don't regularly see this person and are in each other's personal lives, like it seemed like when Trisha was talking about her and Rosanna's friendship, like they know each other's parents, their kids, like that's a real friendship to me, where like you're actually intertwined in that person's life. But if you only see them when you're on set, then that's probably not your real friend. So like that's also something to keep in mind. Like it's also like, how deep do these relationships go?
How deep is your love?
This is exactly what we're seeing in our main character video, where you do something someone doesn't like, maybe you send a text and they read it the wrong way, or you can't make it to their party, and you do one small thing, and then the reality of how they feel about you comes out, where they're like, oh, they're such a terrible person. And this is something I wanted to bring up too. Like I like to speak in like metaphors and analogies to like get my point across. But like I was giving an example to Danny, and I'm like, if I'm having a really bad day and me and Danny are gonna meet for lunch, and Danny's running late to the lunch, and later on that day I'm telling Rosanna the story and I'm like complaining about my day, I had a rough day, I'm venting to a friend, and I'm like, Danny ran late, it made me whatever, and like maybe me and Danny already squashed it, we talked about it, we whatever, and then Rosanna takes it and interprets it as me talking shit to Danny, and she runs to Danny and says, yeah, Melanie was complaining about you the whole time and talking shit about you. Like, I think we need to understand what talking shit is, because Rosanna's also making it seem like she's tearing down Joey and trying to come for his career. She made it seem like she was, like Tana was belittling Rosanna herself, or even Trisha was. And it's like, you took your interpretation of a comment and spun it into what you wanted it to be, instead of having conversations with these people. And something we encourage is having communication with people and having conversations before just like jumping to the conclusion of this. It's like the same thing with them bringing up smoking her dad. It's like, that's something you already put out to the public. So it's not like they're sitting here spreading lies about you or sharing personal information. It's like, if I'm just stating something that happened in my day, then that's what happened in my day. Like, and then you're taking it as me talking shit, and you're trying to convince everyone else it's talking shit. Then the people who don't like me are just gonna agree with you that I was talking shit. That makes sense.
And I feel like all of this is overshadowing the point of Tana's story, and that's something she did bring up as well, that because of her past or how people see her, if she does say that a serious situation like that happened, people are automatically looking for ways to invalidate that story. I think the point is she had an uncomfortable encounter at work, in a professional setting. The point is, this man should not have said the shit he said. This man was unprofessional. This man was creepy. This man was inappropriate. Like, nobody wants to hear, oh, that's my dream to see you tied up or chained up. Like, that's disgusting. Let's just call that what it is. And let's just, really acknowledge the truth here is that women on a consistent basis have to minimize or pretend in the moment, in a lot of situations, professional or not, when they feel uncomfortable with a man, because they don't know if the situation is going to escalate. They don't know if he is going to get physical. You know what I'm saying? Because Rosanna wants to point out, oh, you could have just left. Like, it seemed like he was standing, I don't know the scene, but it seemed like he's standing in front of her, or whatever the case is. Like, if she felt like it's just me and this grown-ass man that is already saying inappropriate things to me, I don't feel comfortable even, like, getting past him or getting out of this room, because I don't know what he's willing to do.
Exactly. It's called, she's in fight, flight, or freeze, and she could have, like, frozen that moment, but she's also kind of fighting because she did speak up to him about, like, what did you say to me? So it's like, again, as women, you don't know what to do in certain situations, and it just sucks that they, like, tear apart her story to the point to just be like, well, we don't believe you, because I've been in that situation, and it sucks.
Right, and I know there's so much more we can go into about this situation and what it reveals about friendships. It just seems like Rosanna's, she's going through her own things, and she misread what she wanted to misread. And watching her podcast, we watched it through Adam McIntyre. Shout out to Adam. And I was like, wait a minute, like, Tana can't even get to the meat of her story without Rosanna pausing it every 30 seconds to be like, no, it wasn't 50 feet, it was 15 feet, so she's a liar.
Yeah.
And it's like, my God.
It's funny because this is something Danny and I are, like, paranoid about, where when we're editing, we're like, oh, I said that word wrong. Oh my God, cut that out. Oh my God, cut this. Because we think someone's going to sit there and you would think it's someone with no life who's just going to sit there and pick apart your entire video and word for word. Because I'm always like, to Danny, I'm like, who cares if you said it this way? Like, who's really paying that close attention? And it's like, your enemies are. Your enemy is paying that close attention. And it's like, another thing I want to point out, again, Rosanna and her partner are older, and not like I'm not saying this in an ageist way because I'm older than Tana and her friends too. I'm just saying it as, like, you want to be older and wiser, not older and bitter, and sit there and, like, I was telling Danny this too, like, me and my man, I don't have a man, but whoever he is, he's out there somewhere, my future man, if we're sitting on vacation, like, I'm 40 years old and me and my man are sitting on vacation, I'm not running to make an emergency podcast to dissect what some 20-something-year-old is saying about me. Like, I'm not. Like, it's just not what I'm gonna do. And it's just ironic, again, she's calling these people miserable, and I'm like, for what? Doing what they always do? They have a podcast. You're the one, again, making an emergency podcast on your vacation.
And I think it just shows how miserable these people are.
That's giving miserable to me, and that's just my personal opinion on my page on our podcast.
Right. If you watch our main character video, we say it makes sense to be the main character on your social media page, on your page.
It's all about her and her feelings and not about anybody else's. And
yeah, it's all about her and her feelings because she's on her podcast. The same way this is, all of your feelings.
That's Tana's podcast. The main focus of her story is herself. But I wanted to point out, because Mel was like, did they bring their podcast mic, their equipment with them on vacation? Or did they get them shipped like immediately? We need to do a podcast now. As two people who have an outside perspective, like no biasness in this situation, we're not fans of any of these people involved. We're just looking at it as like, damn, we've been in that situation where our friends didn't like something we said, and instead of sitting down and having a conversation and communicating with one another about our feelings and what we misinterpreted, they just took that moment to say everything they didn't like about us or everything they were unhappy with their friendship. And it's like, okay, well, if you were feeling this way, this never came up prior. So for Rosanna, like, yeah, you have your issues with Tana's friend, Brooke. Yeah, you were working on projects with Tana in the past. Clearly, you've had your opinions about her that you needed an opportunity to finally reveal.
Exactly. And she even admits, and you gotta listen because, you know, people really tell on themselves, and she told on herself multiple times in this video, where she goes, even when my friends are talking badly about Tana, I always defend her. And it's like, you're over here again criticizing these young women for talking, for the way they talk. Okay, let's record the conversations between you and your friends. And what, it makes you better because you defended her? Why are you surrounding yourself with people who sit around and bash people when you're criticizing these women for doing that? Like, again, being hypocritical, and that's fine, we're all hypocritical. We all, when we're with our friends, if we recorded the conversations with our friends, it would probably sound pretty similar to that to some extent, you know? And once again, they're 20-year-old YouTubers. They're not Harvard law graduates. Like, I don't understand what kind of conversation you thought you were gonna hear from them. And when you're telling a story with your friends, you're gonna exaggerate. And like, one thing like her partner says, and I think his name's Mike, he says, oh, when do exaggerations become lies? Like, I didn't like that he said that, because like, if something like that happened to me, when I'm telling the story back to my friends, I'm gonna be a little dramatic with it because it makes it entertaining. And once again, she's trying to take a serious situation and make it funny and jokes, and that's how she deals with her trauma.
Right. Her partner, he had a lot to say. Like, my God. Go swim in a pool. You're on vacation.
I don't think that I don't think grown men should be sitting there commentating on young women. They're 10 years younger than you, like, and you're annoyed about how they're speaking about creepy men. Like, red flag, in my opinion.
Yeah, you shouldn't be saying anything right now, sir.
Exactly. And I know Moses chimes in on Trisha's podcast, like we watched that clip, but he was defending the young women and also not kind of egging on the drama. Like, I just felt like the guy Mike was egging on the drama of like, they're degrading you. Like, what? Like, I don't want my partner sitting there like, I don't know, like, and I don't remember, I think Adam says in his video, like, this could have been a private conversation between the two of you. Like, I would hope that by the time I'm that age, I have a partner, that I would have a partner who's like calms me down from this and is like, just breathe, they're 26 years old, like, it's not that serious, like, let it go, maybe send them a text. Like, I would want someone who's gonna, and this is just my personal opinion, like, I would want someone like who's gonna like calm me down and bring me centered, not like rile me up and egg on like that these people are talking shit about me. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And Rosanna points out that Tana ends up contradicting herself and saying that Rosanna is a slay. And what I took from that is Tana just actually she doesn't give a shit about you as much as you think she does. That's how I see it. She probably just mentioned the outlandish title that you used to tell the story about how you honored your father and thought that was just an outrageous thing to add to her story. But I genuinely I don't think she thinks bad about you. And if she does, I don't know. I'm just saying from what I see, like from the comments she made about Rosanna, I just think I didn't really see the malice behind it.
Because one other thing Tana said, she was like, well, if this happened to Rosanna, and I think Rosanna took that the wrong way as well. She interpreted it as like, oh, Tana thinks I'm meek and I forgot the other word she used, but just basically that like Tana thinks badly of her. And I was like, I think what Tana was trying to say, again, I don't know either, so I'm interpreting my way, you're interpreting it your way, like that's just what happens. And I just thought as her being like, well, if it happened to her, people would probably take it more seriously. And I guarantee if it did happen to her, this would be a completely different video and it would be totally different. Or is it because Joey's your friend that you wouldn't speak up? Like, why are you running defense for someone who, like, this another grown man who is running the production, who seems to be the director, creator, all of that? Like, he should be speaking up. And you're over here running defense for another man, and for what? And then for the creepy man. That didn't make any sense either. It's like, do you know him? Is he your friend? Like, what the hell?
Right.
Why are you like going so hard for this man? And it's so funny because at one point she even says, because Tana's like, oh, he's breathing heavy. And then Rosanna goes, oh, he's breathing heavy because he's overweight. Like, okay, that was unnecessary. First of all, you're giving more details about this man than Tana did. And also, you're just, again, you're basically showing that she was right. So he was breathing heavy. You both said he's breathing heavy. She's just, again, she was uncomfortable with that. It's like, that sucks too, because it's probably something he can't control.
I want to point out, because I agree with you, that it was unnecessary for Rosanna to defend this man. If you wanted to talk about how you felt regarding Tana and even Trisha's comments about the video you made honoring your father, then you could have spoken about that. You didn't have to go and drag Tana's entire story. And apparently your partner was watching every interaction Tana had because he was there every step of the way.
That's what I wanted to bring up. Okay, yes.
Except for the part where the incident actually happened. But like I said, if you were upset with the parts they brought up about you, that's one thing. You can express that. But to go ahead and dissect every single sentence she said in her podcast and to minimize the incident she had with that creepy ass man, that's not fair.
Right. And like you're saying, she had her partner with her the whole time because he was saying he was there the whole time. I don't know if he's in it. I don't know if he's also another actor in it. I don't know anything about him. But if he wasn't actually in it and he just got to be there with you, where Tana says on her podcast that her assistant, Paige, didn't get to be with her, and even Paige was like, yeah, I wasn't allowed down there. So it was like, you're allowed to have your partner with you who's a man, who's like, you're less likely to have something happen to you with another man around than like Tana, who has no one else with her. Like, come on, like, can't you see it from that perspective? And like Danny's saying, like, he just happened, this man's like, I just happened to see everything. Like, again, why are you like running to clock another woman? Like, I don't like that. I don't like that for both of them. Just like, clearly y'all are a match made in heaven if that's how you want to spend your vacation.
She was over here demanding medical records from Tana about her pinky incident. And as someone who broke their, I said pinky because I broke my pinky. I don't know what finger she got injured.
It was her pinky. Oh my god, yeah, same. Literally the same finger.
No way. Girl, you can use my, you want to show my x-ray? Just real quick, because this was just a funny commentary Mel and I had about the situation. As someone who broke their finger and went 2 days without getting medical attention because I was in denial and I refused to believe that I broke a bone, I thought it was just sprained. I was icing it like, yeah, no, the swelling will go down. I just wanted to point that out, okay? Some of us deal with injuries differently.
Exactly. Some of us deal with pain differently. Like, Danny was like I think she sent me a picture and I was like, you need to go to the hospital in like 2-3 days. I'm like, that doesn't look good. Like sometimes in a moment, it's just like you hurt yourself and then you just go on about your day. Depending on like the background you come from, like if you grew up in a family where they didn't really go to the doctor in the hospital because you didn't have the money or the insurance, like you learn to just not accept help, and like you're just like, I'm good, everything's good. And like I think Tana, from what I do know about her, I feel like she's probably came from like a similar background where like there wasn't anyone rushing. If you hurt your pinky, no one was rushing to take you anywhere. It was just like, walk it off, you're good, you know? So I feel like that's another instance where she's like, well, you would have went to the hospital. It's like, maybe you would have done that. That's what you would have done in the situation. Like, again, it sounds like the logical thing to do, but everyone thinks differently and reacts differently. And one more point I want to say is, I know I already made the point of her saying like, oh, they're talking through podcasts. I just think it's funny because Joey's supposedly her friend, and it's like, well, why did Joey agree to go on Trish's podcast? Especially if you think it is just drama and you think that that's someone that talks shit about you, because you wanted the promotion, because he wanted to get promotion for this project he's working on. It's like, Ro, why didn't he go on your podcast and talk about it? Is that gonna come up soon? Are you two gonna be like, why isn't your friend sitting next to you on the podcast? I don't know. That's just a small detail. Yeah. All right. What else do you want to say on the situation?
I think we covered it. I just think that they're not genuinely friends, and if Trisha and Rosanna were genuine friends and this concluded their friendship, that's unfortunate, because it just seems like Tana just wanted to talk about a bad day she had on set, and unfortunately Rosanna was mentioned briefly, granted, and she just took that and ran with it. Rosanna took that and ran with it. But we have more we want to talk about when it comes to friendships, so please be on the lookout for those videos. If you haven't seen our main character video, go check it out. There are quite a few gems in there, and we would love to know your thoughts on this situation, or your thoughts about a similar experience you had within your friendship group.
Yes, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Again, we could probably talk for hours on hours about this subject because there's so much to go into, but we're curious to know your thoughts on the situation, and just beware of those enemies that are lurking. They're closer than you think.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.